We have our fourth thought leader. The gentleman's name is Duane Woods. He comes to us today from Houston, Texas. He is in the top 10 executives at Waste Management. He is the Senior Vice President of the Western Region. And I have been looking forward to introducing Duane for 6 months after he signed up for this. The reason is, and I've thought a lot about this, who would have ever guessed that Waste Management would have become the sexiest company on the face of the planet? They have. Their phone hasn't stopped ringing over the last couple of years. They have their mottos and their commercials. You've seen their green trucks. Their motto is reverse the way that you think about waste. They are no longer a trash company. They are a materials company. And their 5 main operational areas are collection, recycling, transfer, disposable, and renewable energy. Mr. Woods is an attorney by training. He has 25 years of environmental and regulation experience in the waste industry. At one point, he was the Assistant Secretary for the state of Washington. And so I am very eager to hear how Waste Management is trying to turn trash into cash. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you, Duane Woods.
Thank you, Chuck. I don't know about you, but when Ann finished 3 commercials about the restrooms, Ralph and I had to go out. So the subliminal message worked, Ann. It worked on me. Well, thank you. I want to thank Chuck and Marcus and the Dean as well. You know, if I could hook Chuck up to some kind of energy source, I know he'd be sustainable for some time. Well, what is a guy here from Waste Management talking about sustainability? And by the way, I'm not from Houston, Chuck. I'm actually now located in Arizona, but spent most of my life in Seattle. So in fact, when I first started in life, I started in local government, and the guy I sat next to, Greg Nichols, is now the mayor of Seattle, and one of the leaders among cities in driving, sustainable solutions. So what about waste management? Well, we're kind of in an interesting position, if you will, around sustainability. We really, as an entity, our industry was really around taking garbage and getting it out of sight, out of mind, and making sure we did that in an environmentally sensitive way. So how is it now we are evolved to more of a sustainable focus? Maybe we can slip to the first slide here. So let me give you a quick overview of where we're at now. What do we do? Well, we serve about 20 million customers. We have about 48,000 employees. We have facilities across all of the 48 states in Puerto Rico and in Canada. My particular responsibility is for the Western U.S. and Western Canada. It's about $3.4 billion in revenues and about 9,500 employees. We have 350 collection operations and recycling facilities. We have a fleet of 22,000 very heavy-duty vocational pieces of equipment, the big garbage trucks you see out there. They run about $250,000 per truck, to give you some idea how expensive they are. And they're the second most difficult piece of equipment to maintain other than an aircraft because of all the hydraulics. We have 10,000 pieces of heavy equipment, what we call yellow iron. And we have, actually in California here, the largest alternative fuel fleet in the country, particularly in our particular heavy industry, about 500 LNG and CNG trucks, which I'll talk about in a second. We are the largest recycling company in the country in North America. We currently process about 8 million tons of material a year, and that's certainly on the rise, as I'll talk about in a second. Go to the next slide here. We do have 16 waste-to-energy plants. Wheelabrator is one of our subsidiaries. They originally started with a European technology, and waste-to-energy in Europe is very, very big. And we generate about enough energy in our waste-to-energy plants to provide energy to about 1 million homes, although hopefully if they become more efficient, maybe 2 million homes. We also have landfill gas. We inherited a lot of facilities that generate methane, and we actually try to produce energy out of that instead of flaring it, and we generate a lot of energy out of those projects. Interestingly enough, I was up in San Francisco earlier this week, and we just completed a partnership with Linde BOC to generate liquid natural gas at our sites. If that works, and we believe it will, at a test facility up in the Bay, it could produce more than enough fuel for our fleets in all the state of California, as well as provide some for the ports and others. We have 25 wildlife certified habitat locations. Our goal is to get to 25,000 acres. And if you see some of our commercials, you'll see some of the sites that we've done, particularly in the West, around wildlife habitat protection. and we have 257 engineered disposal and treatment facilities. Why don't we, next slide if you could. So, what are our sustainability goals? And maybe before I start down this list, it'd be a good time if we could to show the commercial.
Sure.
And I'll describe a little bit about our journey here.
You may not realize it, but there's a source of renewable energy right in your neighborhood, and you're helping to power it. Today, Waste Management is using the resources at our disposal to create energy from waste, enough green energy to power over 1 million homes. From everyday collection to environmental protection, think green, think Waste Management.
I wanted to show this because if I went back to when I took my job about 4.5 years ago to run the West, we actually went to Coeur d'Alene Lake with our senior leadership team, and we thought we were really looking at our current business model and deciding whether or not there was a significant case for change around the way we were organized. We had a brand new CEO, David Steiner. We had just gone through a complete kind of restructuring. And if you don't know, Waste Management is really a roll-up of about 1,500 companies. So from a business perspective, that's a tremendous job to try to integrate all these local businesses and try to align everybody around a business strategy, then try to build a culture that you can then use to drive change. So when we met in Coeur d'Alene, I'd have to say a little probably like the oil industry. We had a lot of folks who really from the East Coast who hadn't really believed that sustainability really meant anything. And I remember posting on the wall at that meeting a number of zero waste agendas for large customers across the country and discussing with our senior team, the really a strong need to look at our business model and what we were doing. Now, understandably, for years, the recycling business did not make money at Waste, largely due to the fact that there was a lot of capital investment, a lot of labor cost, the technology for sorting wasn't that good, and commodity prices weren't that good. This country was great at using new resources, but there was not much of a market for reuse of materials. So it's hard to build that business case you have to build for your investors and your senior team to say, we need to invest even more money in this business. I guess the analogy I used to that team was if you were Michael Dell and you suddenly looked up and the top 100 companies were telling you they wanted to have no personal computers on their desks in 5 years, would that cause you to think a little bit about your business case? So it did start us down the road of a case for change and really looking at our business model. So we then did some research, and Ann was talking about the research BP did. And that research really showed us that we were doing a lot of really good things around the environment, but no one knew it. In fact, all of our customers and our cities were very interested in it and very much supported what we were doing. So to try to align the company, to begin to build a brand, and change the culture of the company, we started these advertisements that really talked about what we were doing. All of our trucks were green. Our customers said, gee, we want to see clean trucks, professional people out there, and we want to hear what you're doing. So we spent a lot of money around beginning that brand journey. Now, it was not only about telling our customers, it's really about aligning all of our employees and all the people in the company around this vision. And you really can't change a company of 50,000 employees unless you really have that vision from the top down and that strategy really clear. So the ads really did a lot to build that in the company, to build that pride and integrity and culture around what we were doing. And now we have a platform, if you will, to begin to grow off of that into some new areas. So at the beginning of this year, David Steiner announced at the World Business Forum some sustainability goals that we're going to engage in the company. We talked about energy. We've done a lot to use what we do have today, what had been being flared, into producing energy. Now, we know that's not fully sustainable. That's really taking something that's emitted right now and trying to do something productive with it. But we're also investing in new technology and partnering with other companies around new technologies. We're working with General Electric on some gasification projects. I just mentioned the LNG project with Linde BOC. We're doing some clean diesel projects. We've actually produced diesel, a clean diesel out of the methane product that we have. We've done a lot of work around cellulose ethanol. A lot of material that we currently collect has an opportunity to generate clean fuel, and so we're investing money looking at that new innovation. On the recycling side, finally, some things have happened to make recycling a great business investment for waste management and for the country. What's generated that? Well, tremendous growth overseas in China and India, and of course this huge economic development engine, which has driven a huge demand on natural resources. And that demand on natural resources has raised the commodity prices now of the materials we've been throwing away. So that's really great news because now we finally can see a value stream instead of a waste stream. In addition to that, we've done a lot of work around technology. We have some brand new recycling facilities, and one in Baltimore, we call it the Kit Kat facility, but it now can generate and process about 1,500 tons per day of mixed recyclables with only about a 4% residual. That's a huge accomplishment where it used to be what we called these dirty MRFs, or material recovery facilities, would generate large percentages of contaminated materials. So a lot of new optical sorting devices, eddy currents, air jets that allow us to now process large volumes of material. And that really is going to be a cornerstone for our expansion of our recycling programs across the country, because now we can look at putting a lot of mixed recyclables together, which will increase the amount of recycling we can get in the country, and we can now more cost effectively sort it, and now we can generate some markets. Now, what's also interesting on recycling is that if I were to say what has been a big driver for change, well, in the past it was really legislation on the West Coast where we operate. And that was really the driver. It was really around AB 939 here in California and Washington State and Oregon, really driving some recycling, but that didn't drive the economics as quickly. What also is driving it is now Walmart. If you just said what has had the biggest impact in the country on changing our perspective about the value of these materials, it's when Walmart said, you know what, we're going to go down this road of sustainability. We're going to meet with all the people who we buy from, all our suppliers, and they're going to have to start meeting some tests around reuse of materials. Well, when 10 cents of every dollar spent in the US is spent at a Walmart store, when they generate that kind of economic power, that really made a big shift for us in the marketplace. And that was a good thing, I think, because right now, we're shipping most of our recycled product to China. And because China is better set up to use that material than we are here in the States, they need the resources and they want the resources to build their economy. Now we're seeing at least a rebirth, if you will, of a desire for all of these suppliers to have a product source here in the US. So now we're really looking at partnerships with those companies and looking at product recovery for them and putting it back in the value stream here in the US. And I'm sure we'll still export where we need to, but I'm really excited about those new market opportunities here in the States. On the fleet side, we have a huge opportunity to improve our fleets. Now, we currently are looking at spending about $500 million a year in fleets. We have, as I mentioned, 22,000 trucks. Our challenge has been that the vendors really in the US have not developed a very good product for us to use. Our trucks require a lot of torque and requires an engine that really has enough power to power the equipment. And so our first venture in San Diego, we partnered with PG&E to develop a mobile emission credit from our conversion to liquid natural gas trucks. And that was going to help them get stationary credits to build the Otay power plant. Well, we partnered with a vendor around that equipment, and it was really a difficult one for us. We had no end of problems with the equipment when we got it. And in order to maintain those air permits, we had to have the equipment running regularly. We had to basically maintain a dual fleet for almost 3 years before we could work through the problems with that equipment. You know, because of the heat of the liquid natural gas, the valves are wearing out. The turbochargers wore out. There was frame cracking. I mean, there's all kinds of issues I could tell you about, and it took us about 5 years to work through those technical problems. Now, that, of course, when you go back to your corporate office and explain, well, I wanted to do this because it was good, and by the way, it cost us an extra $8 million in repair costs, that's not a great story. So one of the challenges out of this is to push an agenda with our vendors where we're really getting better equipment. And the only way we're going to do that is if you build a market for them to build the equipment. So we as a leader in this industry have to build that market, work with vendors, and really make sure they're investing in the R&D around this new equipment. Why liquid natural gas, in my opinion? It has a better weight advantage over CNG. And we get about 600 more pounds in payload, and that means less trucks, less emissions, more efficiency on the road, better for the environment. And it's a clean burning fuel. And with new technology, if we could produce that out of any methane source that's being emitted, that provides a good way to deal with a greenhouse gas and produce clean fuel. Innovation is kind of tied up in that whole piece around working with vendors, but I think with the kind of Walmart drive around its suppliers and with a lot of new economic incentives to be green, that we're going to see a lot more innovation around our business, and we're excited about that. On sustainable operations, we have a long way to go. We, as I mentioned, rolled up about 1,500 of these sites across the country. So as you can imagine, they were not built specifically with a model or template design. So a little like the gas station that Ann talked about, we've been building a template for our business that looks sustainable, that's LEED certified, that we can then hold up and make sure our employees understand is a better way to operate. And we know it'll pay for itself. So we're currently got a team of engineers and our folks looking at how to design our future facilities and how to remodel the facilities we have to move toward a much more sustainable design in every respect, whether it's water, energy, air. In addition, we want to make sure we use kind of lean processes in laying out those sites because we use a lot of fuel. So everything we do has got to be focused on reducing our fuel use and saving that piece of the environment. On the environment, we do a lot around wildlife habitat, and we're going to continue to do that because we own a lot of real estate, a lot of buffer lands, and there's a lot of opportunity for us to do things well. Can you move to the next slide? So our transformation is really from a waste management company to a materials management company, from a waste stream to a value stream. And we think we built the platform with our employees to begin to have a great leverage here. We think now the economy is at a place where it is a great platform for growth, which is important to our investors as well. So our goal, increase efficiency and decrease wasteful practices in our operations across the country, increase recovery and reuse, and really start to partner with our customers around product recovery and reuse. Again, our vendors, as I mentioned, we have a lot of work to do with our vendors to make sure that the equipment we're speccing really is something that is efficient, is good for the environment. We're now, in fact, testing a bunch of hybrid garbage trucks that were developed by Peterbilt, and we're excited and hopeful about how that technology will prove out. We have one piece of equipment in the Bay Area and a couple in Dallas, and we'll see how that develops. But I'm optimistic with that technology. Develop new and innovative waste conversion strategies. As I mentioned, we've got some great partnerships with some very good companies around looking at new ways to produce energy from that material that cannot be recovered and reused. There's a lot of organics out there that we think there's some great opportunity to produce clean fuels with that maybe today are not being handled effectively. And then sustainable practices. For us to really begin to consult with customers around sustainability, we have to go through the journey all the way through the organization to make sure we all see the benefits of that. And again, it's about changing culture in the company. Next slide. So, last week, we ended up, what I would say, the end of the beginning. About 6 months ago, the CEO allowed me to chair, if you will, our sustainability strategy and partner it and sponsor it for the company. And we picked 4 what we call performance leadership teams. Now, the process was that we would pick basically some of our top leaders from across all of our functions and all of our geographic areas, and we'd pick those leaders to then focus in on 4 key business areas. Now, there's a strategy behind using the performance leadership teams. Number 1, it's some of your best people. They know the business. Number 2, if they get aligned around an issue, you're more likely then to develop that momentum among the rest of your management team to drive change. So we assigned the teams 4 particular areas. Material value. Go into our waste stream, meet with our customers, benchmark all you can with respect to large customers, and understand exactly what value is in the waste stream, how it's changing, and what the potential is for us to partner with customers around new opportunities to capture and reuse that material. Material movement. How will things move differently in the future than they do today? You know, we need to move beyond some of the traditional collection methods we've been using, so how might we look differently in the future? What can we do with new lightweight materials? What can we do in terms of different ways to collect materials? I'll tell you in this one, this is a good example of where public policy sometimes goes wrong. But our increase in emissions over the last 10 years has been largely caused by municipal agendas that have added more truck fleets. Let's pick up MSW with one fleet, let's pick up recycling with another fleet, let's go ahead and pick up organics now. So now we have 3 sets of fleets emitting emissions to try to achieve a good objective, but the net environmental impact is not necessarily good at all. So again, we're re-looking at that whole paradigm and thinking about what's the best way to move materials differently than we do today. And we're looking at reverse logistics opportunities with our customers. The sustainability template, that's really our journey through all of our facilities to change the culture, and then once we learn that, to begin to market that out. And then finally, the municipal model. Cities are not only some of our largest customers, but they drive legislative policy, and they face tremendous challenges around infrastructure, roads, water, you name it. They're facing tremendous challenges, and now in an economic decline, they're struggling to find ways to do things better. So we felt benchmarking with all the major cities in the country to understand where they're at was important for us to look ahead and say, where do we need to be to meet some of their problems in the future? What we found, interestingly, is that there are some cities out there that really are there. They have a lot of sophistication, and we call those kind of tier 3 cities. You have tier 1s that, the Tupelo, Mississippis, that just right now, they don't care, they want it cheap, that's where they want to go. And then you have a lot of cities in that tier 2. And I would put Los Angeles in a tier 2 city. Ironically, here in the city of Los Angeles, the LA Sanitary District has actually kept disposal prices low. Well, is that necessarily the right policy to drive recycling? Now, fortunately, they've been moving that price up, so now the economics of recovery are better. But sometimes those policies conflict with where you want to get. So that's our expanded strategy, is really around those 4 categories. We've gotten some great report outs last week from our teams. It's created a new vision and strategy for the company. We're now moving down the road along the lines of where BP and I know where CB Richard Ellis and the Port have gone. And we've got some exciting things in the works. I expect a year from now, if I were to come back, to show you a lot more exciting things that will have been implemented. But I can tell you there's a lot of work in terms of increasing material recovery, looking at reuse, new energy sources, a lot of really great things out there. And I think the future is going to look a lot different than the past. So with that,
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Duane, I loved hearing about the 9 lives of recycled products. I also read recently that I guess it takes less energy to recycle a product than to build a new one. Which
significantly.
Significantly, which makes sense. Great. Any questions for Mr. Woods? I am going to be a little sensitive to the time. Go ahead, Ms. Zoe.
Hey, hi, my name is Zoe Starr, and actually this question is for all the panel
please.
members. I was wondering if you're working with any universities on research initiatives to find cleaner fluids, cold desulfurization, or just better, alternative fluids. So if you could comment on that.
Yeah, so we have a partnership with DuPont, work with Stanford, Imperial College in the UK. We have several bioscience research grants working simultaneously.
Sure, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Our business is more on the management side to implement reduction strategies, not on necessarily the fuel strategy. So we're looking to lower energy usage, cost, manage waste better, things like that.
Yeah, I'd say, interestingly, we've had our team spend a lot of time with USC's sustainability group here, and actually it was very helpful. We're part of the SEER team here. And we've actually engaged experts across the country on each pieces of this waste stream that we're talking about. But we have a long way to go, I think, in addition to the work we're doing with GE and others to look at new opportunities in the energy side as well.
Yeah, to a certain extent, we use university resources, for instance, on some really practical things, to be honest with you. UC Riverside does all our emission testing, if you would, and because they have it's kind of the integrity thing and the basic science part of that. We're also working with the Sustainable Cities program, which is a little bit once removed, but we do a lot of logistics information. Stuff comes out of universities, and I think there's a real definite nexus there and lots of opportunity as well. A lot of the technologies that we're investing in have embedded in them somewhere somebody working with somebody at university or some on the various technology aspects of that.